What's good, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of It's Levels to This. I'm your host, and I go by the name of Taylor VanVleet. Before we get rolling, man, please make sure you guys are following Levels Picks everywhere. That is at Levels Picks on all platforms. And, of course, if you want to further the conversation, by all means, please hop in the Discord, man. Of course, we got picks and plays over there. You can talk to our cappers over there and so much more. As you guys know, it's Thursday, so of course we're looking ahead. Man, we got some headlines to hit. Of course, we're going to talk about the college slate coming up this weekend. If last weekend, I was saying that it could be one that's like sneaky good and has some fun to it. I think this weekend, in terms of matchups, who's playing who and all that kind of stuff, this weekend could be the best one we have all season long. And then last but not least, definitely want to tap into the NFL this week. Talk about some games I have circled for this weekend. So without further ado, let's get into level one. All right, man. For level one this week, we're going to start in Houston. As everybody knows, the NBA offseason is what a lot of people say is the best part of the season now. The last few years, we've had drama and trades and all that kind of stuff. But I think this year, the biggest storyline, I guess, leading into the season aren't necessarily who's traded to who or what teams got who in the offseason, which is ironic with the team I'm about to discuss. But I think it's more about who isn't going to be there for this season, the start of the season, however that looks. Obviously, Tyrese Halliburton got hurt in the NBA Finals. He'll be out for the season from all reports that I've seen. Same thing with Jason Tatum, even though he said that he might have an opportunity to come back and things of that nature, as well as guys like Kyrie. So, the other day we saw the report that Fred VanVleet also tore his ACL. He's likely out for the season, which really sucks, man. I was really excited to see this Houston team on the court. I thought that they had a very fun makeup. Everybody talks about their league pass team and whatnot. And I thought the Rockets, and to a degree, I still think that they will be, but I thought the Rockets would be the team that I would be watching a lot on League Pass this season, because I just thought that they were just an interesting team, right? You had a guy like Fred, who is not only a great scorer, he's a champion, all that, but he's a great point of attack defender, a bulldog, if you will. And then you also, of course, have Amen Thompson, who I thought is coming into his own, just like his brother is over there in Detroit. But it was going to be fun to see that alongside KD, alongside Sengun, and then whichever young guy they decide to bring along and stick in that lineup. I think Reed Shepherd would have been, in terms of with Fred, would have been a good person to put in that role, because you're not putting too much on him, I guess, defensively. Similar to, and he plays defense before you Lakers fans get on me, but similar to like an Austin Reeves kind of spot, right? Where you had AD and LeBron around him. So it kind of made it a lot easier for him to flow. And obviously you maybe had another defender on the court like Rui, where he doesn't necessarily have to do that much, and he can get blown by and things of that nature. And it's not like it's just killing the team as a whole. But now I think it makes this team, honestly, the more I think about it, it might make this team even more interesting, because I think this is a situation where a guy like Amen Thompson, who I believe is a point guard or could be a point guard in the NBA. Last year he averaged, I think, almost four assists a game. It was like 3 point something. And I think with more opportunity to handle the ball, they'll have a little bit more spacing this year. Obviously, with KD drawing as much attention as he is, excuse me, you have Sengun obviously developing to the all-star player that he is. He will draw a lot of attention. So as long as you can get some shooting around him, say they bring a guy like Cam Whitmore into the lineup, or you get a guy like Jabari Smith going from three that can add like that real true 3-and-D wing, I think that it could be a very interesting a team still, even without Fred. So, man, prayers up to Fred, man. I hope he gets back soon, or as soon as he possibly can. Because like I said, I was really excited to see this team fully whole. So if there's a situation where he could come back and be prepared for the playoffs, man, I'd love to see it. So, but man, yeah, prayers up to Fred, man. Moving on, there was another story. Let me adjust this camera real quick. Moving on, man. There was another story coming out of the SEC. It came out right after or like alongside of the Monday show, so I didn't get a chance to talk about it there. Wanted to kind of take a breath, read into it, listen to some things about it, make sure I had all my ducks in a row. But Bruce Pearl decided to retire from Auburn, or step down as the head coach of Auburn. I guess that, to me, that sings retirement, because I don't think he'll come back. Of course, if you haven't seen, he's moving into an ambassador role, and his son Steven will be stepping in as the head coach. And it's not under an interim role. From everything I've read, he has a deal in place to be the head coach of Auburn. So I guess that provides some, comfort for him, knowing that he's not going to get, or is like looking to get replaced, or he's not looking over his shoulder and that kind of thing. For Bruce, man, I think it's the end to a very tumultuous but yet rewarding career, if that makes sense. I think that, obviously we know the transgressions that he's had. Well, obviously the Tennessee barbecue story was the biggest, but the ones before, with the the phone calls and all that kind of stuff. But I think since then, in terms of an on-court perspective, he's kind of redeemed himself in who he is as a coach. A lot of people kind of have changed their tone on how they look at him. And even with the Tennessee stuff, me being from Tennessee, I know that it was kind of small. It wasn't an infraction that, even in today's age, and that infraction is something that's like, we turn a blind eye to it. We don't even look at it or think about it, especially now in the NIL era, with players getting the paychecks and money and everything that they do. We really don't care. So with all that saying, man, I think Bruce, at the end of the day, me as a basketball guy, he's definitely someone that I would have played for. I think that he always looks out for his players. But I also can say that I think as he got closer to the end of his career, his priorities changed. And yeah, he's a basketball coach, but I think the things that he wanted to speak out and be vocal on started to matter more to him than being the head coach of a college basketball team. And I think that's fine. People are free to, believe and talk about the things they want to. And if they feel that that's their passion and they want to do that, by all means do it. And, for those of us who are kind of that pay attention to college basketball year round, like myself, and just are very into it, you kind of heard the rumors about this and that he was going to maybe run for public office and things of that nature. So it doesn't seem like he's doing that as of now, but I feel like that could possibly be on the horizon. But all in all, I think the most interesting part of all this is the trend of coaches stepping down right before the season. We saw it with Tony Bennett last year, obviously Bruce this year. The naming the successor part doesn't really bother me, because we've seen that with coaches before. Obviously, we had Hubert took over at North Carolina. You had Coach Shire taking over for Coach K. I don't have a problem with that, because it that provides continuity within the program. A lot of schools are loyal to their own. So you want a guy from either the coaching tree of your historic coach, or somebody who played for them, or something of that nature, to kind of someone who's going to represent your university, and that can represent your university in the way that you'd want to, or you'd want them to, I guess, as an AD. So I don't have an issue with that, but I do have an issue with the timing of it. I know kids get like 30 days for to transfer and all that, but I just think it sucks. It's a really weird position to be put in. School's already started in some of these places. Kids, like for example, a guy like Tahad Pettiford, I know he was thinking about going to the NBA, and while that may not have been the best decision, he also could have had the chance to transfer to a program that he felt really fit him, and their roster wasn't already done, right? They're instead of them trying to fit them into the plans that they have, I guess, post or like really post summer, if you think about it. But they're trying to, instead of doing that, he would have been in a situation where they're fitting him into the plans from jump, and now the team's kind of built around him. Just using that as an example. So, like I said, man, I want to give a big shout out, congrats to Bruce Pearl on a great career. Like I said, I think he was by the time he left, he was one of the best in the sport. And I think that's what we're probably going to remember him for. Obviously, like I said, the Tennessee stuff will come up, but I think that's what we're going to really remember him for. Moving on, man. Last but not least, I want to discuss a story that I saw. I want to say I saw maybe a week and a half ago, but I just kind of out of sight, out of mind, and then it popped back up. An article I saw pop back up, and I was like, man, this is actually really interesting to me, and I don't really understand why people don't understand why people are upset. And here's what I'm talking about. Tom Brady discussed the criticisms he was getting for a possible conflict of interest. Obviously, he is the Raiders owner or part owner of the Raiders, but he's also a Fox NFL Sunday analyst. And so the question is Tom Brady being given, or is he privy to information that other owners and people inside football wouldn't have? And therefore, it's giving the Raiders an advantage. Now, I want to hit this from this particular thing first. I saw a lot of people kind of downplaying the magnitude of like what it could be. Now, me personally, I don't necessarily think Tom Brady is using any of that information to cheat or to give to the Raiders or anything. I just don't see that. I don't see that happening personally. But with that being said, I understand why other owners, other fans of other teams might have an issue with it. I've worked with people in sports media. I've worked with analysts, and I understand how prepared that they want to be, try to be. And so with that, they have these pregame coaches meetings where they're talking, and they're asking really detailed questions because they want to be as detailed as possible to give the audience, the viewer, to be able to give us a clear view of what's going on our screen, what we can expect, why certain things are happening. They get that from getting a game plan. I'm not saying they have the play card in front of them, but they have an idea of maybe, hey, let's watch out for this guy. Let's do this. Let's do that. We want to put this guy in this position, so on and so forth. And so I think from like I said, another owner perspective, a fan perspective, that it's okay to wonder if that is an unfair competitive advantage that Tom Brady and the Raiders are getting. I mean, last week I believe he called the Cowboys-Bears game, right? This week, I think the Raiders play the Bears. So like, it's fair to say that if he called that game last week and Ben Johnson was like, hey man, we want to do this, and this. Our goal is we're trying to get this guy more involved in the offense going down the road. We can have him, yada, yada, yada. And then next week or this coming Sunday, when they play the Raiders, you see, oh man, they're making a concerted effort to try to shut down this guy or do this or do that. So to me, I think that there is some validity there. And I don't understand why. Like, I saw a clip of First Take, and I believe it was Stephen A., and he was so baffled as to why people might think this way. And I'm like, it's really not that hard. Like, he's sitting in a production meeting. You've said in production meetings before with coaches, and you said, they told me this, they told me that. So if they're willing to divulge that information to you, why wouldn't they be doing that to Tom, who they probably are more chill with, have a better relationship and stuff like that because of him being a player? So, it is what it is. I don't care personally until it affects my team, of course. Like I said, I don't think Tom is doing it. And plus, I don't necessarily think maybe the information that he's getting is worth pushing forward unless it's something, like I said, somebody, hey, we're trying to get this guy involved for like the rest of the season. But then also, I don't necessarily know how much of that information they're trying to pass on, especially with the knowledge of him being an owner. So that's level one for this week, man. Let's move it over to college football. It's a stag week ahead, so let's get it on. Level two. Here we go. All right, man. As I said in the intro, this week's college football slate could be the best one we have all season long. Last week was one that I called sneaky. There were some games that were like Memphis, Arkansas that I thought could be fun to watch, could be ones that you weren't necessarily looking for. But I think this week it's a lot of games that we're looking for. So let's hop in, man. The first one I want to talk about is Oregon at Penn State. Penn State right now is -3.5 with the over under being 52.5. And I think this game is going to be a fun one to watch. Obviously, Oregon's offense is humming. Dante Moore is looking like a guy who could be among the favorites to win the Heisman this season if he continues his play. But this will also be the first real road test he's going to have. And I know that they played at Northwestern on the road, and it was a conference game, and they kind of came out slow and everything. But at the same time, I think just the level of talent there didn't really make that a test. It was one of those things where it was cross country. It was your body clocks weren't ready, all that kind of jazz, excuses you can kind of make that I think as to why they didn't play or weren't as efficient, or however you want to put that, as they have been in their other games. Obviously, this game they're doing the same thing, but I think that this one they're going to be fully prepared for. But to finish my point, this will also be the first time that Dante Moore has played in front of a crowd like this, right? Penn State whiteout game. It doesn't get much crazier on a Saturday than that. So really interested to see how he handles that environment. As I said, Northwestern environment was nothing compared to what it's going to be in Happy Valley on Saturday. So very interested to see how he handles that. On the flip side, man, I think if Penn State can get pressure on him as well, I think that's definitely going to help them. I personally don't think I'm not sold on Penn State's offense. Obviously, they scored a lot of points, but they also haven't played anybody worth playing. So I'm really eager to see how that offense goes up against the Ducks defense, because I believe Penn State's defense can get enough stops for them to win the game, but I don't believe that Penn State's offense is going to be able to score enough on Oregon to be able to win the game. And that to me is where I think the biggest difference is. I just personally am not sold yet on Penn State's defense, Penn State's offense. And until they prove that to me, I think I'm going to rock with Oregon. Just simply from that fact. I like what Dan Lanning is building. I like how about business they are. Even in the bad games, they still, or quote unquote bad games, they still handle business handily. So I think this is one where they go to Happy Valley and they handle business. I'm not saying it's a blowout or anything like that. I just think that they win the game because I just don't think that Penn State is going to be able to put up the numbers that they'll need to stay in the game. I'm not a big believer in the offense. I'm not a huge believer in Drew Aller. So it's kind of a show me something to change my mind. Moving on, man, going down south. Of course, the big game in the SEC is Alabama taking on Georgia between the hedges. Georgia right now is a 3-point favorite. Obviously, as I said, the dogs are at home. Gunnar Stockton showed us who he was when he went on the road to Tennessee and got a big dub. I think Bama, on the flip side, you got a team like Bama whose first game was against Florida State. They got punched in the mouth and just weren't prepared. But I think since then they've showed us that they've kind of righted the ship. It's a team that we should still look out for. And to me, though, I think as I talk about both those offenses, I think that's where the game to me is going to come down to. Can Gunnar Stockton repeat what he did at Tennessee? Or B, can Ty Simpson continue his great play? I mean, even if you look at the Florida State game, he didn't play horribly. It was just that the offense didn't move enough and Florida State was going. So I think if Ty Simpson can continue to play the way he's played the last few games, obviously the Bama defense is the Bama defense. We know that they're going to send out guys who are elite. And so I expect them to continue to be elite. But on the flip side with Georgia's receivers and Gunnar Stockton, we saw that the offense is a lot more explosive than we probably thought. As a person who watches Tennessee football, I don't really expect them to, if they score 41 points in a game, I don't necessarily expect them to lose that game. Not too many teams are going to outscore Tennessee, especially when they look like they look and Joey Aguilar look like he looked. But for a team like Georgia, who is not, I guess, traditionally known for putting up mounds of points, right? They're a team that's going to grind you with their defense. They're going to beat you up, and then they're going to hand the ball to their running backs and let them or hit their skill position players on whether that's a tight end or wide receiver on a slant or something like that and beat you that way. But what we saw against Tennessee was that this offense can be explosive. And so I think that's, like I said, to me, the defenses are going to be great, but I think these offenses are good enough to where they can still score points. But I think it's going to come down to which quarterback can continue their play, whether that's Gunnar Stockton and continue his level of play, or if that's Ty Simpson and him doing the same thing. For me, I with the game being in Athens, I just don't know if this Alabama team is ready for that just yet. Obviously I could be wrong, but I from what I saw in that Tennessee game from Georgia, I think that this is one that they are going to take home. I just do. I think that Ty Simpson, this is his first, or really not first. The Florida State was the first, but this is the one that kind of everybody was penciling or looking for. Florida State was one that kind of overlooked because of what happened last year. But I think this game right here is one that they are. Everybody has circled. You got to be ready for this, that, and the third. So, I don't know if he will be, especially with Georgia and how they prepare. Think about last year to the Texas game, right? Same kind of thing. Everybody's hyping it up, and you had an experienced quarterback on that team, and they still made it a rough day for Quinn Ewers and the boys. So I think I'm a ride with the dogs here at home to take care of business. Next up, staying in the SEC, we're going to the Kiffin Bowl, and that is LSU versus Ole Miss. Of course, if you haven't seen it, Lane Kiffin and his daughter had a playful exchange. His daughter is, I believe, Instagram official. I don't know how it works for the kids these days. With Whit Weeks, who is the linebacker at LSU. Of course, LSU and Ole Miss play this week. Ole Miss is currently favored right now at -1.5. This is going to be, from a football perspective, this is going to be a fun game. Obviously, LSU has been good out the gate, but the offense has struggled. Obviously, with Garrett Nussmeier, we thought that we'd see a little bit more explosion. These LSU receivers, the pedigree that they've had for years and years, we kind of just thought this is one that they're going to just pop, right? The defense finally looks fixed, if you will. It looks like they definitely are back to somewhat of the LSU of old. And to me, I think personally, that's where they need to win, where they need to lie to win this game. The LSU defense needs to make it ugly, right? What did we see when they played Florida, right? They made it an ugly game. So, even though the offense wasn't moving, 5 interceptions from DJ Lagway kind of makes it hard to win the game. So I think if on offense they can just take care of the ball, if Garrett Nussmeier can show he's an NFL quarterback in the sense of making all the throws, but just that he can manage the team, manage the game in that sense, and then the defense can muck it up. I don't think the Rebels' tempo and what they want to do will really have a chance to take off and take over. Obviously, they have a backup who might be better than the starter in terms of what they're trying to do. But I don't know if Trinidad Chambliss is going to be able or is maybe ready for this particular challenge just yet. I know what he did last week against Tulane, and he did his thing, but Tulane and LSU is a different story. So I think, like I said, if LSU can win on early downs, the defense can make it ugly and make it tough. I think that this is a game that LSU can definitely come out with, and honestly, that's where my heart lies in terms of if I had to put money on this game, it'd be with the Tigers. I just think that they're a better team. I think this might be the week that those receivers get going. I like Nussmeier. I have faith in Nussmeier, so I think that all that put together, if they come out and they offensively do play up to their potential, I think they should be LSU. I think they should be Ole Miss this weekend. So those are some of the big games this weekend. I want to move on to some games that I'm personally excited for. as well as some ones I think are a little bit sneaky. So just some little quick hitters. First one is Auburn at Texas A&M. Super, super excited for this one. Obviously, we know what happened last week with Auburn and Oklahoma. So really want to see how they snap back from that. Is it going to be something that they use as fuel for the rest of the season? Or is it going to flip side? Is it going to be something that kind of starts their slide as they get further and further into SEC play? On the flip side, Texas A&M and Marcel Reed looking great to start off the season. Big win at Notre Dame. They're coming back. The big win at Notre Dame, and now they're coming back to the SEC. So really excited for this game. I think that it's going to be a lower scoring game. I think both defenses in this game are really going to make their mark. And so it's kind of like a grinded out who can show that they're the toughest. And for me, I just think Texas A&M has a little bit too much. I think they beat Auburn this weekend. So moving on, TCU and Arizona State. TCU obviously coming in this. Josh Hoover, everybody's talking about him as another possible Heisman favorite. He's going up against Arizona State and Sam Leavitt, who we all thought was going to be a guy who took a big step this season. So far, that just hasn't happened. There's some injuries on both sides. I know TCU's down the running back, and Arizona State's secondary is a little thin. But to me, I think that this is obviously a huge game within the Big 12 for TCU. I think if they win it, they can, it's kind of like a crash course with them in Texas Tech. On the flip side, I think Arizona State, they had the loss at Mississippi State. They righted the ship with Baylor this past week. I think if they can continue this, they can kind of get back on track where the goals that they had to start the season. But at the same time, I think that there is a little bit of it has been a little bit of a drop off. I think that Cam Scottaboo might have mattered a little more than we probably realized. I don't think Sam Leavitt was necessarily ready to take this big jump, but I think he's made some strides. But also, like I said, I think that since there's more on him, it's kind of not showing as much. Again, just excited to watch this game. Obviously Big 12 games used to be really wide open. I guess you can say they still are and exciting, but I think this is a game that will live up to that. Going back to the Big 10, Ohio State and Washington is another one that I'm excited for. Obviously the Buckeyes are going to Washington for this game. It's an 8.5 point line right now with Ohio State being the favorite. Obviously, we know what Ohio State is, number one team in the country, number one defense from what we've seen, just got dogs everywhere. Offensively, have dogs everywhere. So you would think by that description I just gave you that Washington would have no chance. But with that being said, Washington has not looked bad this season. Damon Williams has looked the part as a starting quarterback in college football, kind of living up to the hype, as if you would say. And then also it's going to be away at Husky Stadium. And why I bring that up is because very, very similar to Dante Moore, this will be Julian Sayan's first road start in a true road environment. And so I think the Husky Stadium is going to be loud. It's going to be hard to hear. But most of all, I think it's going to be a lower scoring game than we all expect, right? I think a lot of us are like, hey, the talent difference isn't as big as like Ohio State Grambling, but it's still pretty wide or pretty solid. But I think for this, with that Julian Sayin point that I just made, I personally see that this is a situation where I think Ohio State maybe struggles out the gate. They maybe go a little slow. I mean, Washington defense, they're not on Texas level, but I think they're pretty good. So I think it's a team that can get stops. They can make it tough on Julian Sayin. They can find ways to hold Jeremiah Smith in check, hold Carnell Tate in check, and make it tough on Ohio State to where that game pressure starts to creep in. And then you have a situation where, it's third quarter, they're only up by 4 or 6 or something like that. Washington's driving, people are getting upset with each other, and then you have a game, right? So really interested to watch how this one plays out. Like I said, I'm excited for it because it's the first road start, and it's a defense that I think is probably the best that they've seen since Texas. So really excited to watch that. And then, as I said in the intro of level 2, man, I got a couple quick hitter games that I want to note. Arizona and Iowa State, excited for that one as well. I think that would be is going to be a fun one to watch. On Friday night, Florida State and Virginia. I think Florida State takes the game, but I think Virginia has an offense that can keep them in it. So, if Florida State comes out slow, lethargic, like, hey, we thought you guys were going to lay down for us, it could get interesting. Notre Dame and Arkansas is another one. Obviously, Arkansas lost to Memphis last week, but Notre Dame, is a team that, as I said before, is a team that I think has to win out in order to stay in playoff contention. And the reason I think this game is interesting, last week, Purdue put up points against Notre Dame. Notre Dame's defense hasn't proven us anything that they're good. They're anything like last year. Arkansas can score, and Arkansas has the talent defensively to stay in the game with Notre Dame. So if Arkansas can put up points on Notre Dame, like we've seen teams do this season, I think Arkansas has a very, very good opportunity to bounce back from their Memphis loss last week and get a big win against Notre Dame. And then last but not least, man, Tennessee at Mississippi State. This game is a 7.5 point line with Tennessee being the favorite. But I think it's one where, obviously, to me, it's just a lot of unknowns. And what I mean by that is we saw what Tennessee was against Georgia, right? The offense, when it's humming, it's humming. But the defense is leaving a lot to be desired. On the flip side with Mississippi State, we don't really know. They've had so many different types of performances, right? But one thing that we are, I guess you could say, sure about is the defense. The defense has, for lack of better terms, they've done their job this season, right? So I'm interested to see how that clashes, because I think if Mississippi State can get stops, then Tennessee might be in a little bit of trouble, because I think Mississippi State can do enough to score enough points to keep themselves in the game and potentially win it. So that's Saturday, man. So let's move on to the league. It's a couple games I'm watching, and we'll talk about them in level 3. All right, man. Welcome back to this Levels to This. And as I said in the open, this week's level 3, we're going to tap into the NFL. Looked at the board for week 4. There wasn't a lot of games that piqued my interest, but there was a few that I wanted to hit on and kind of give my thoughts on. Obviously, tonight we have Seahawks at Cardinals for Thursday Night Football. Clearly, division game. Seahawks are a 1.5 point favorite. To me, when it comes to Thursday night games, I always thought, man, they're weird. It's going to be a weird game no matter who's playing, and I think tonight is no different. Obviously, Arizona's without James Conner, so that's going to make a big difference. I think personally, if they can't run the ball, it's going to be Seattle all the way, and I don't think they will be able to. Between Trey Benson and Kyler Murray, I just don't see it. Plus, in terms from a weapon standpoint, like the Cardinals have them, but right now Marvin Harrison Jr.'s hands don't work. So it kind of, I just don't see how it gets better today either. Especially with a Seattle defense who is pretty solid on the back end. I just don't see it happening. So if I had to lean one way or the other, I'd definitely pick Seattle to take this. I think Sam Darnold's shown us so far that he is a solid NFL quarterback. He can run a team. I mean, even going back to last year, obviously had the bad performance in the playoffs, but I think from a regular season perspective, from just a handling business, kind of being the maestro, if you will, of the team, I think he's kind of shown us that he can do that at a quality level. Now, moving on to Sunday, Colts at Rams is a game that I'm very excited to watch. Obviously, the Colts are 3-0, and Indiana Jones has been doing his thing. The Colts are humming. They look like they have Peyton Manning back there. Offense looks unstoppable. The offense looks unstoppable right now. But they're going to be a Rams team who should have gotten a W last week in Philadelphia. But obviously, we all know what happened with the blocked field goal and everything like that, which, by the way, as a Broncos fan, I want to say, why didn't Jordan Davis get a leverage call? He put hands on the guy, on the long snapper. Why didn't you get it? But I digress. Let me back up. I digress. But this week, man, I think it's going to be, to me, this is going to be a fun game, especially if the Colts can kind of keep it up. I love what the Rams are doing with Puka and Devontae, and I just feel like somebody's always open. And Kyron looks great, especially in that first half last week. I was like, man, my thought process of the Rams winning this game, if they do it, like they look like they're going to do damage. And just like I said on Monday, I thought that was going to be the case, and they just proved me wrong. So it on the flip side, man, so I saw that say if the Colts secondary still has their injuries, which I haven't looked at the injury report today, I think that it's going to be tough for the Colts to overcome that if they can't score. And I think that to me this week, I think is where I don't want to say the scoring stops, but I think they have a little bit more trouble on offense. I think that the pressure that the Rams can get is, for example, similar to Denver, but the back end I think is outside of Surtain. I think the back end is a little bit more cohesive, a little bit better outside, with the exception of Forbes. I think they'll be able to handle business on that back end a little bit better than Denver was able to. And so I think that they're going to be able to take it home. That the Rams, that is. Next game I want to discuss is the Browns at the Lions. Now, for me personally, I think every Browns game this year has been fun. Not the Ravens one, but I think the one, especially last week against Green Bay. But to me, the Browns defense is amazing. Like they have the opportunity to be in games if they have an opportunity to be in games if that defense is playing top notch, right? And so to me, this is the reason I brought this game up is because we saw week one what Detroit looked like against Green Bay. And we know that Green Bay has Micah, Sean Gary, they have guys, right? And I think we all agree that the Green Bay defense is one of the better ones in the NFL. But now you're going up against a defense that can mirror that and may be better than that defense with a guy who might be better at the position than the guy you had trouble with, and that's Micah Parsons. And so I think that, or I'm sorry, and that's the guy I was talking about was Micah Parsons, but that is Jesus Christ, Myles Garrett. Oh my God, I can't believe that I forgot Myles Garrett. But anywho, the guy you're having trouble with, it might at Green Bay, you might have a bigger, better dog against Cleveland. And so I'm really interested to see how that strength on strength goes, right? Because the strength of the Detroit team is their offense, right? On the flip side, I think that the Browns can get enough going with their defense, if they're playing at that top level, if they can score 20 points, it's a potential that they could win. But I think this game is going to obviously be a little bit more low scoring than we think. That the Lions are a 9.5 point favorite. I might lean Browns here just because I saw what I saw in Green Bay and division game. I know I get all that. Yada. I still don't know, even after watching the Ravens game, I still don't know if a really good defense, if they can take advantage or do the same things that they do against bad defenses, they can do against really good ones. So that's another one I'm excited to watch. Excuse me. Of course, Eagles at Bucs is another fun one. Of course, Mike Evans is nursing a hamstring, but both teams are undefeated. Baker Mayfield has found a way to win every single week. And on the flip side, the Eagles are just like tush pushing along the season. Of course, we know what happened last week with the Jordan Davis blocked field goal, leverage. But moving on to this week, I'm really excited to see how the Eagles kind of build onto that performance. Will A.J. Brown be more a part of the program? Are they going to throw the ball downfield more? It seemed like when the offense opened up in the second half or it seemed like when they started downfield passing in the second half is when the offense really opened up. But it seemed like from a standpoint of they've been holding back, right? And he was just kind of like, let's let go. And in this case, in the OC is who I'm referring to. But I wonder if they start off like that this week, right? Let's get these guys in rhythm early. So excited to see that. Then, like I said, man, Baker's found a way to win every single week. Emeka Egbuka looks for real. I saw something about Chris Godwin, but I don't know if he'll be back for this game or not. I don't believe so. But I did see that he's in the mix. So again, same thing as last week. The Bucs have a chance to make a statement, but their statement's different. The Rams had a chance to say we're the best team in the NFC, or at least we think we are. Whereas I think the Bucs have a chance to say and announce that we are for real. I think a lot of people still don't believe in Tampa Bay. But I think if they can pull this win off against the defending Super Bowl champs, especially coming off a win like they had last week and how they've been playing this season. I think that it speaks volumes and that the Bucs would feel validated to the whole country. Last but not least, man, I want to talk about two teams that are struggling, but it still is going to make for what I hope to be a great game, and that's the Ravens at the Chiefs. Obviously, the Ravens have lost 2 games that they probably shouldn't have lost. They probably should be undefeated, but that defense looks bad. The back end of that defense looks bad, and the funny part is the other night against the Lions, it was the running game that was killing them. So they need to figure that out. I know they're going to still be missing some guys on the defensive line, potentially. So that could definitely add to this. But on the flip side, the Chiefs, as we know, their offense has not been as efficient as it has been in past years. Even against the Giants, they were struggling. So I think this could be a chance for, I don't want to say Baltimore to get right, but I think Baltimore can definitely hold the Chiefs offense down. Excuse me. As long as they're not turning the ball over, you're not giving Mahomes short fields to work with and things of that nature where they can kind of be creative and out-create the disadvantage that they are at offensively, then I think that the Ravens should take it handily. I personally, like I said, I think they should be 3-0. I think, you've had Derrick Henry fumble twice. You've had Lamar and Derrick cannot be able to get in on the one. I just feel like there's a lot of frustration building up right now. And I think that this might be the game where it comes out in like a positive focused fashion, if you will. So that's the board for this week. Obviously, as I said, college is a loaded week. NFL is a loaded week. So it should be a good weekend. And that's going to do it for episode 3 of It's Levels to This. Again, man, as always, I appreciate you all for rocking with me. Make sure you're following at Levels Picks on all platforms. And, of course, hop in the Discord if you want to keep the conversation going. We'll be back on Monday. Until then, enjoy the games. And as always, it's Levels to This. Peace.